Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are talking historical fiction, specifically Black historical fiction. I'm not gonna lie, these books are a little heavier in nature and in theme, but some of these I've read recently, some of these I've read 3+ years ago, and I still think about the story. One of my favorite ways to learn about history is through fiction. So if you haven't known where to start with African American historical fiction, this is the video for you. Let's jump right in. Okay, we are starting strong with Sadeqa Johnson. This is an author that I read for the first time last year. I read both The Yellow Wife and The House of Eve back to back, and the connection between the two was probably one of the most chilling literary experiences that I think I've had. What makes this also exciting is that she has a new book that released today as I was filming this. World War II, Germany, Black, again, historical fiction. So The House of Eve is set post World War II. So I'm excited to see how Johnson does history this way because she just does it so well. Some books are really hard to review because nothing that I could say would encapsulate my feelings about this book in the most positive way. In this story, we follow Phoebe, who is born to a Black mother and a white father. She's very light-skinned. She's the yellow wife, but she has privileges based on her skin tone, so she's learned to read and write. And these are skills that serve her as the story progresses, but she is sold from her family, kind of loses those privileges. She ends up working as a house slave at this slave jail. And while she's working at the slave jail, she is prepping other enslaved women for auction, but she's secretly documenting their stories, their names, because again, she learned how to read and write. So this book doesn't shy away from the brutality of slavery, which it shouldn't. But what stayed with me in this book, and honestly most of the books that I'm going to tell you about today, is just the resilience that Phoebe had as a character, constantly making decisions to protect herself, and then at a certain stage of the book, her family. And that was something that was just felt on every single page. And like I've said, learning history through fiction is just such a fun way to do it. And while this is a fictional story, but this story is without a doubt reflective of what many women experience. Next, we switch into The House of Eve, which shifts us to post-World War II. And this story follows Ruby and Eleanor. We get both of their perspectives as young women in the 50s, young Black women in the 50s and 60s, navigating unexpected pregnancies and the societal expectations that come with that. So Ruby is 14 and she has an interracial relationship that leaves her pregnant. And then Eleanor is a college student. She marries wealthy, but there's this one thing that she can't do just yet. I can't spoil the story. I don't want to spoil the story and the connections. But yeah, Eleanor goes to Howard. She marries into a rich family. And when you come from a certain socioeconomic status and move/transition into a higher one, there are expectations that come for and from you. This book, in a different way, was just a sobering and like empathetic look at the price that women had to pay to be women and still have to pay, but specifically Black women. So reading The House of Eve that discussed pregnancy and bodily autonomy, another book that talks about similar themes but in a very different way is Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez. This was one that I read over 3 years ago, maybe right at 3. I was angry, I was upset, I was educated, then I was angry again. The main character, Sybil, is a young nurse, and over the course of the story, she kind of questions the methods that they are using for Black women in preventing pregnancies. That says enough in itself. Questioning a medical system that is supposed to be helping you, but we know that many Black people to this day still are skeptical of the medical system because of how it treated Black people in the past. So this looks at that a bit, but again, with women and pregnancies and autonomy and being able to make choices over your bodies. They talked about the depot shot and the effects that that could have. So while this story and most of these stories are set in the past, we see a lot of these themes being relevant and popping up today as well. Civil really wants to be good and do good, but also acknowledging the privilege, if you can call it that, that she had coming from a Black wealthy family and being college educated. So books like this remind me that history will continue to repeat itself if we don't acknowledge it, if we don't remember it, if we don't address it. Now let's talk about a book that had me pulling over on the side of the road and ugly crying, An American Marriage by Sadeqa Johnson. She also is releasing a new book. I believe it's called Kin this year in April. So excited to read that. But this story follows Roy and Celestial. At the beginning of this story, they are young and in love, and Roy is wrongfully accused of harming a white woman, and that puts him in jail. He spends a lot of time in jail. Life looks different. Their relationship looks different. Everything changes based on the hate and, again, a wrongful accusation at the start of the book. I went from rooting for them to realizing that they didn't need to be together, but then being just sad because that situation ruined what they could have been and could have had. And y'all know that I hate miscommunication, but the miscommunication in the letters that they were writing back and forth to each other, that was where I was crying. That was where I was sobbing. What I appreciate most about this book is that race obviously plays an important part of the role that starts the book off. That's kind of our inciting action for the things that happen. But the book and its focus after that is mainly about relationships and timing and emotional growth, and not really focusing on the triggering aspects of race and racism throughout the entirety of the book. So while this is still historical fiction, I think this also could classify as like literary fiction as well. If you want something that talks about African American history beyond the US, here we go. The Attic Child by Lola J. This was another book that made me cry. This is similar to the next book that I'll tell you about, but very, very different from the others. And we see a multi-generational story told through this addict at, again, different points in history. We see parts of capturing and enslavement. We see trips from Africa to Britain. We see these different things and just... I'm sorry that I don't have much to say about these books, because I just think a lot of them you truly have to experience for yourself. The only way for me to tell you how impactful I felt to see, especially Dikembe's story of becoming and forgiving and learning how to live. And I can't imagine what those types of things took for so many people. So yeah, shedding light on that African and British relationship and history that I don't think I'd ever really considered before, and just giving you more insight on how things spread and how people moved and beliefs and thoughts that people had at this time period. And then, since it is multi-generational, seeing how that looks around us today. I always think those are the most powerful types of stories, because you can see direct ties to things that are going on in present day and things that were done and just haven't really been rectified for. And then the last book that I'm going to talk to you about today is River Sing Me Home. This story starts in Barbados right after the Emancipation Act of 1834, except freedom wasn't really freedom, and in fact that meant keep working for me for longer. But eventually Rachel is able to leave that, and she's on a hunt to go find her children, because we know that multiple families were split up in lots of different ways. She finds her children, some living, some not, some happy, some not, some living secret lives and some not. This story is specifically about motherhood and resilience, because Rachel just absolutely refused to not know where her children were. Another emotional story, and like all the ones that I've told you about, one that will stay with you long after you close the book. All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's video. Like I said at the start, I know this can be a genre that is intimidating. It is, even for me. But these stories are so very important. If you've been hesitant, I encourage you to step outside of your comfort zone just even a little bit and try one of these books, because you never know when something is meant to find you and in what way. Make sure that you like this video, that you subscribe to the channel. Any other places that I can be found will be linked in the description down below. And let's talk in the comments about any of these books, if you're going to read them, if there are some historical fiction books that change the way you view things. Let's yap it up. And until the next video, I again encourage you to try something new. You won't learn new things if you don't try new things. So take this as an opportunity. Here is your go ahead to read one of these books. Bye.